Welcome to another episode of Tom Sox Conversations. I'm Brendan Kucera, and today I'm joined by Drew Loepprich, former player for the Wake Forest baseball program and obviously a part of the Charlottesville Tom Sox back in 2017. David, how are you doing today? Or Drew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you having me.
And I want to get into your time with the Tom Sox a little bit, but beforehand, how did you find out about the Tom Sox and before you went to play for them for the summer?
So I think Kevin Conway was the first person from Wake that I knew that went to Tom Sox. And I think it was Bruce Steele also went the year before me as well. So Coach Slento came to me, asked me what my plans were. Obviously, he knew I was in a business school, wanted to do something where I could also do some business experience or internship as well as play some baseball, get ready for the senior year. And Jeff came forward and had this opportunity that he did previous year with some guys in internship. So it seemed like a good fit, looked into him, see it was a new team, had a pretty good year the year before, so I thought it was a good fit.
Yeah, and what was that transition like for you going over? Had you played for any summer teams prior, or was that your first experience?
So my freshman summer I played, but it was in Charlotte at home, so it wasn't really a summer ball experience. I was living at home. I was training at the same place I trained at when I was younger, played at a high school I played against all throughout 4 years of high school. So it was really my first experience. After my sophomore year, I didn't go because I threw a lot. So it was a big transition going and staying with a completely new family. I mean, completely different than college, because when you go to college, you're still kind of on your own, make your kind of rules a little bit as long as you follow your classes and baseball and everything. When you go to a different family's house, you kind of got to learn when they get up, what routine they had. They had 2 dogs, so I had some responsibility with the dogs and different things before work. So it was a big transition, but I enjoyed it.
And you were a weekend starter over at Wake Forest, and then you come over to the Tom Sox and you go into this kind of long reliever role. What was that transition like for you?
It wasn't really too much of a transition. Coach Hunt did a really good job explaining to me. He said basically you'll either be a front half kind of 4 or 5 innings or back half 4 or 5 innings. So he's like, it's basically just going to be small starts. That's kind of what you do in summer ball. You don't really go into 6, 7 innings unless your pitch count's staying low. So really I just kind of viewed it as, when I came in later in the game, I kind of knew when I was going in roughly an inning off, give or take. So I could do my pregame warm up, get ready and loose. So it wasn't really too much transition.
Is there anything during that time that stands out to you as something that was really difficult, maybe to get the hang of that in that transition from a starting pitcher to a reliever at all?
I think the biggest thing was probably getting the weight training more in sync, because when you're a starter, you kind of know which day of the week it is, or maybe it's like a Thursday through Saturday series, majority Friday through Sunday. So I was Saturday or Sunday starter, so I pretty much had my weight lifting set up where Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday lighter lifts. In the summer, when the games are kind of all over the place, you don't know exactly when you're going to be throwing the next time, because as a reliever, it can kind of change, even though I know roughly what days, but you don't know if it'll be shorter or longer, what it'll be. So figuring out how to get those lifts in mixed with also working earlier in the day, then coming out to the field and working those things in. So that was probably the biggest thing, just keeping up with everything, my routine, my program, my coach also gave me for the summer.
Yeah, and coming into the game, it's obviously very different from being a starter to a reliever coming into that game. So is there any different kind of anxiousness that you felt maybe from a bullpen role than a starter? Did it feel a little more unnatural to you since starter was more of your role full-time over at Wake Forest?
I think figuring out kind of the speed of the game. When you're a starter, you can set that tone. You know exactly how guys felt, how they roll through the lineup, different things. When you're not in the game, you're on the bench watching. You can't really get that full feel until you get in there. You can see what guys did their last at bats, different things, but you don't really understand how aggressive they are, what approach they're taking until you really get in the game. Maybe they're following quick at bats because that's how the last pitcher was working. Maybe they're going slower, patient. That's how they're working. So that's really the main thing, those first few batters, kind of figuring out if they're aggressive, slow, or what the tempo is, those kind of things.
And talking about things along the lines of like pitch selection and stuff like that, in terms of your routine, did pitch selection change at all? Did you maybe go to certain pitches less since you had maybe more of a smaller role than you did during the college season in terms of the amount of innings you were pitching?
So the biggest thing was probably my changeup. That was probably my third pitch by far, first fastball, and then my slider changeup. So that was one thing I mixed in a lot more in the summer relative to the school year, because it's something I didn't feel as confident with. Obviously, the competition still in Charlottesville in the summer league is good. But when you're playing ACC every weekend, it's a little different ball game. So you can't be throwing pitches in there you're not fully confident with. I wasn't always confident with this. So that was the biggest thing when I would come into the game. I'd really do more of a fastball changeup work instead of fastball slider. But if I needed to get that strikeout, I still always fell on that slider and needed that big pitch. I'd do that over the changeup.
And you racked up a number of strikeouts in that summer with Charlottesville, 26 strikeouts to 1 walk. What would you attribute to that success of keeping guys from free passes?
I think just trusting the defense mainly. I'm a two-seam pitcher, so I know I'm not really a huge strikeout guy. I'll get the strikeout and swing and misses, but that's not the intent. The intent is just more try to get the ground ball, that downwards action, the movement. And if the guy swings over it, so be it. Get the strikeout. If not, I just got to trust the defense. And very early on, I think my first start, I think it's Harrisonburg. It was every ball was fielded well. Guys pregame, they take their ground balls very seriously. That was one thing Coach Hunt did a very good job of, making sure everybody got their reps in. So I felt very confident letting the batters hit the ball and let my defense play for me.
And during that summer that you played for Charlottesville, is there any one specific memory that kind of sticks out to you? That was obviously a pretty memorable season. So anything that you remember that was a lot of fun or something that you won't forget from that summer with the Tom Sox?
All right. Well, obviously winning the championship, that's one thing you don't forget. But I think more personally was the hacky sack. So I think my sophomore year when we were when I was playing for Wake Forest, we went to Marshall in West Virginia. We stopped at the big mall there during I think it was a fog delay actually, which was the first time that ever happened to me. But I guess in the mountains you get some serious fog. So went to the mall, got some hacky sacks, and then a few of the pitchers, while the other teams would take BP, we just start hitting it around. So I think maybe like my third or fourth game in Charlottesville, I decided to break it out, see what the interest was. And it started out small, I think just 2 or 3 guys, but kind of grew from there. Then we get some cameos. I think Chris Ferris, he was on Harrisonburg Turks. He was another teammate of mine at Wake. He came over when we played them a couple of times and joined in. So there's a way to kind of bring not only our team together a little bit, but also bring some guys from the other teams over because no one else really has as much fun as we did, I think.
And looking at your time just in Charlottesville in general, is there anything that stood out to you about just the Charlottesville area in general that you remember particularly?
So the Mangrams is the family I stayed with, and they lived about, I'd say, 20 minutes north down Barrett's Road. And I was just blown away every day taking that drive because I'd leave early in the morning when the sun was coming up over the mountains. So taking that drive into Charlottesville, watching the sunrise was absolutely incredible. And then at nights after games, it'd be around the same around when the sun was setting. So I get the sunset over the mountains. So I think for me, that kind of stuck with me. And that was pretty special with Charlottesville, just having that experience every day and just time by myself and really being able to be in the moment, appreciate everything around me.
And I have one last question for you. Obviously, with everything going on, coronavirus and everything that's gone on in the world right now, if you were a player and say this were your senior season this past year at Wake Forest, would you consider or would you take what the NCAA gave you in another year of eligibility, or do you think that eventually once it was over, you would have made the decision to walk on or to leave no matter what?
I think it's a really tough decision. I think each person really needs to look at that personally and decide if that extra year going back is really beneficial. If you're a senior like I was, or I guess after Charlottesville, I would have been a senior if this whole season would have been canceled. I would have probably looked at it more differently because of my major and internship beforehand. I kind of knew college baseball was always kind of my, my top. I didn't think I was ever going to be good enough to go to pro ball. So I think in my situation, I really would have had to look hard at what the offers were in the business side, job world, and see if that opportunity was there for me. Kind of ultimately, even though once I stopped baseball in college, I knew that'd be it. So that would be one thing holding me back, whether the job or not. So I think it's a tough decision each person has to look at and make.
Well, Drew, thanks for joining us. We really appreciated it. And be sure to follow the Valley League and the Charlottesville Tom Sox for more content. And also follow the Tom Sox TV and subscribe on YouTube for more Tom Sox conversations. Once again, Drew, thanks for joining us and thanks for watching.